Western powers have long perceived themselves as the primary enforcers of sanctions, but this is no longer exclusively their domain. In a strategic move, China has stepped up its game by implementing additional sanctions on graphite, a critical component in manufacturing car batteries. This action underscores China's determination to outmaneuver Western competition in the increasingly competitive technological arena. The global landscape, particularly in the context of the escalating tech rivalry between the US and China, is witnessing a significant transformation. In recent times, the dynamics of international trade have been profoundly altered by the adoption of rigorous export controls. These measures, largely motivated by national security imperatives and geopolitical maneuvering, have emerged as a vital element in the foreign policy toolkit of several countries, with the United States being a prominent example. On October 7, 2023, the BIA released a comprehensive update to its export control regulations, significantly expanding restrictions on artificial intelligence, chips, and semiconductor manufacturing equipment. This move aimed to curtail China's military advancements in AI capabilities. Alongside these restrictions, an additional 13 Chinese firms were added to the US Entity List, reflecting the Biden administration's intensified approach to limit China's access to sophisticated technologies. In a direct response to the United States' expanded control measures, China announced its own set of export restrictions. On October 20, these new controls targeted specific graphite products essential in various industries, including semiconductor manufacturing and electric vehicle battery production. Chinese exporters were now required to obtain permits for shipping two types of materials: high purity, high hardness, and high intensity synthetic graphite material, as well as natural flake graphite and its products. This move was seen as a strategic response to the United States' increasing pressure on China's technological advancements. Welcome back of another interesting chapter of our channel, Inventive Insights, makes you discover the unfolding narrative of China's inventive ventures and expanding impact across various global regions. If you're exploring our channel for the first time and have an interest in the dynamic progression of China's evolution and increasing cloud content will surely captivate you, please subscribe, like, and comment. In this video, we delve into the reasons why countries are increasingly backing China's vision of a multipolar world. And we'll discuss the benefits of such a world structure. Stay with us until the end of the video to find out whether the United States has the ability to halt this emerging global trend. Let's get to it. Graphite plays a crucial role in numerous industries, particularly in the manufacturing of EV batteries. As the world's leading producer and exporter of graphite, China's control over this resource has significant implications for global supply chains. The country is responsible for producing a significant portion of the world's gallium and germanium, both critical in semiconductor manufacturing. The recent controls on graphite, however, posed a more significant challenge to the EV industry, as the material is a key component in the production of anodes, the negatively charged part of the EV battery. China's graphite export controls were not targeted at any specific country, but had the potential to impact several of its major customers, including Japan, the United States, India, and South Korea. This broad approach indicated that China might be using these controls more as a tool for geopolitical signaling than as an outright act of retaliation. Nevertheless, the move underscored the country's ability to leverage its dominance in critical raw materials to influence global trade dynamics. The implementation of graphite controls by China highlighted the increasing importance of the friendshoring agenda, where countries move supply chains to jurisdictions that present fewer geopolitical risks. For the United States, China was a significant source of graphite imports, but other countries like Mexico, Canada, and India also played substantial roles in supplying this critical material. The need to diversify supply sources was becoming increasingly evident, particularly for US allies who were heavily reliant on Chinese exports for their EV battery manufacturing needs. While China dominated the global production of graphite, other countries also possess significant natural graphite resources. Nations such as Turkey, Brazil, Madagascar, Mozambique, Tanzania, and Russia were notable for their graphite reserves. This geographical distribution of resources underlined the importance of traditional trade policies in securing alternative sources of graphite and strengthening international partnerships. The automotive industry, especially in the realm of electric vehicles, faced unprecedented challenges in securing stable supplies of critical materials like graphite. The memory of supply chain disruptions caused by the pandemic was still fresh, prompting major automotive companies to invest in mining projects. These initiatives aim to reduce dependence on single country supplies, although the lead time to operationalize new mines typically spans several years. The surge in global sales of electric vehicles added another layer of complexity to the situation. With sales figures reaching new heights and projections indicating continued growth, the demand for graphite, an essential component in EV batteries, soared. China's introduction of new export controls on graphite came at a time when the global market was already grappling with supply constraints. This development prompted countries like Canada and Mexico to ramp up their domestic production capacities to meet the increasing demand, especially from the United States, countries that were heavily dependent on Chinese exports, particularly for key materials like graphite, were prompted to reassess and reorient their supply chains. This was evident in statements from global trade leaders, such as South Korea's trade minister, who emphasized the need to seek alternative sources in light of China's tightening export controls. The US-led Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, or Prosperity Pipeline, was cited as a pivotal mechanism in coordinating responses and managing supply chain disruptions among its member countries. The evolving landscape of international trade, marked by increased restrictions and geopolitical maneuvering, necessitated a reevaluation of supply chain strategies. Governments and private sector entities alike recognized the urgency of diversifying away from over-reliance on single sources, particularly China. This shift was not just a reactive measure, but a strategic approach to mitigate risks associated with geopolitical tensions and to ensure a more resilient supply chain. The electric vehicle market continued to witness robust growth, driven by technological advancements and increasing consumer demand. The Inflation Reduction Act in the United States, with its incentives for EV production, further stimulated this sector. However, this growth also intensified the demand for critical raw materials like graphite, underscoring the need for sustainable and diversified sources. The complexities of global supply chains, particularly in the context of critical materials like graphite, required a multifaceted approach. This involved not only identifying alternative sources, but also investing in technological innovations that could reduce dependence on specific materials or improve recycling and reuse processes. Governments and industries were increasingly looking towards a combination of policy measures, international collaborations, and technological solutions to address these challenges. The series of export controls and countermeasures between the United States and China marked a significant shift in the global trade landscape. These developments highlighted the intricate balance between economic security and the smooth functioning of international trade. While the immediate focus was on managing the impacts of these controls, particularly in critical sectors like semiconductors and electric vehicles, the broader implications for global economic stability and geopolitical relations were profound. The European Union, a key player in the global trade arena, was actively involved in assessing its position in response to these dynamics. Investigations into imposing tariffs on Chinese-made EVs and ongoing negotiations with the United States on critical minerals were indicative of the EU's proactive stance. Potential for concurrent trade defense measures to address issues like steel overcapacity further illustrated the complexities of navigating these global trade challenges. Looking ahead, the interplay between trade policies, technological advancements, and geopolitical strategies was set to shape the future of global trade. The focus on critical, emerging, and green technologies not only had economic implications, but also carried significant geopolitical weight. Countries and industries adapted to these new realities. The landscape of international trade and economic security was poised for further evolution, with far-reaching consequences for global economic and political dynamics. The use of export controls as a tool and geopolitical strategy has profound implications for international relations. Countries, especially major powers like the United States and China, leverage these controls to protect national interests, influence global trade dynamics, and assert dominance in key technological fields. This often leads to a domino effect, prompting other nations to reassess their own policies and alliances in the face of changing global power structures. In this intricate geopolitical landscape, multilateral agreements and diplomatic efforts become increasingly vital. Nations seek to forge new alliances and strengthen existing ones to mitigate the risks associated with over-dependence on a single country or region. Initiatives like the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework For Prosperity IPET represent such efforts aiming to create more resilient and diversified supply chains through collective action and cooperation. The ripple effects of these export controls extend beyond the major economies, impacting emerging markets and developing countries. These nations often find themselves caught in the crossfire of major powers' trade wars, affecting their access to essential technologies and raw materials. Therefore, there's a growing need for policies and initiatives that support these countries in navigating the shifting trade landscape and in securing sustainable economic development. As countries grapple with the challenges posed by export controls, there is an increasing emphasis on technological innovation and research. Nations and companies invest heavily in developing new technologies or finding alternatives to restricted materials and components. This drive for innovation not only helps in circumventing current restrictions, but also fosters long-term economic growth and competitiveness. The focus on critical materials like graphite for EV batteries also brings environmental considerations to the forefront. The transition to green technologies is a global priority, but it requires secure and sustainable sources of raw materials. This necessitates a balanced approach that considers both environmental sustainability and economic needs, encouraging investments in green mining practices and recycling technologies. Implementing and enforcing export controls presents its own set of challenges. Ensuring compliance, monitoring international transactions, and managing the bureaucratic processes involved are complex tasks. Countries must develop robust systems and collaborate internationally to effectively implement these controls without causing undue disruption to legitimate trade activities.